All right, I think we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending the first of 3 information sessions. I'll just talk a little bit about the format for this evening. First of all, we'll start out with video that Life Touch has produced for us. Life Touch is provided for our student pictures. After that, Don Budrow and Randy Pfeiffer will lead you through the main portion of the program, the presentation, and it's a PowerPoint presentation. If you'd like, when you walked in the door, there's also a handout that will outline the presentation and allow you to take notes. Also, following that is a question and answer session, which will be moderated by Jeff Redmond, and we have microphones available to ask questions, but we may or may not need them. A small group here, but if you don't feel comfortable asking a question, in front of the group, we have note cards there. Dawn and Carrie have and pen or pencils for you to write down your questions, so that in the question and answer session, then you can just clank out, and Jeff can read them. Our panel of experts from R.W. Baird, Construction, and architects are here as well. Board President Howard Kushti, but there's a lot of knowledge in the room, so during the Q&A session, feel free to ask any question, and we'll have the answer for you. Following the presentation, Mr. Scott Whittington will be available to give tours for anyone that wants to see this building. And we intentionally scheduled these sessions in all 3 buildings on 3 different nights of the week, because we understand that Mondays may not work. The upcoming sessions are Wednesday, October 8th in High School Commons, and Thursday, October 23rd in Elementary IMC. Same format, and also tours available at that time. So with that, I think we'll get started with the video.
Our population has grown significantly over the last 5 years and continues to grow at a steady pace over the next 10 or 11 years. We are going from classes that are roughly 80 or 90 kids right now, classes that are 110 to 120 kids.
We took a lot of time in planning. We brought in a lot of experts with applied population laboratory, architects, construction managers to help us facilitate the process. The big overriding factor here is providing the space and programming for at least 10 years for our kids. We looked at needs. Needs was always the driving focus.
I think when it comes to total student safety from all 606 kids that we have coming in the building, then that's probably one of the most serious needs is getting a safe drop-off or pick-up spot. For the last couple of years, the police have been involved because we have parents dropping kids off, going through crosswalks, coming up into our bus loop while kids are getting on the bus. It's just not ideal. We just don't have the parking space, and we just don't have the facility right now to have a safe bus pickup and bus drop-off.
We have a really small room to service some of our students with special needs. What happens in our room is typically we have 2 groups of students at least going on at a time.
There are limitations in actually what can be done within the general education classrooms. So we really need some room for them to be able to get their instruction in a quiet, non-distracting place.
The referendum will give us more space to be able to provide a better learning environment for those kiddos who need that extra help and that environment to help them learn in the best possible way.
Gym space at St. Croix Central Elementary School is a commodity. Right now, the Department of Public Instruction requires physical education 3 times a week for all elementary students. With the facilities that we have, we are not able to service all of our kids It's important that we provide kids a safe environment that's age appropriate. Having another gym space would allow us to split up the student body and have half in the current gym and another half in the proposed gym.
I think having a STEM lab, and maybe even with that a STEM teacher, would greatly enhance our math and sciences. I think a lot of jobs in the future are going to be coming from these STEM type programs. And we got to get our kids ready to be able to go into those fields.
Locker room, fitness areas, things like that are inadequate. Kids that have to come in from neighboring towns on game nights and change in classrooms because there's a locker room space. We build a locker room for the football team every fall, and the wrestling room, and things like that. We just don't have the space we need. Probably one of the biggest items is the auditorium that will add not only classroom space, but opportunities for kids to be able to really enhance our drama program. But right now we do out of the cafeteria, our band and choir, I haven't mentioned that. They perform in the gymnasium. People sit on the wood bleachers for a 2-hour concert. Nobody likes that, luckily they like the music, so they come anyway. If we can have an auditorium to house people for those concerts and performances, that would be fantastic.
You can't really hear dynamics or articulations as well as you can in an auditorium. So when I'm playing in an auditorium, it feels like I'm truly creating music and my emotions can come out and I can connect with all my musicians much better than hearing a large banging echo from the gym and the overhead things.
Just about every program that we can offer, if we have the ability to offer it, it's good for students, we should be offering that program.
St. Clair Central has always done a great job at providing a wonderful education. We want to continue to do that and even make it better, and that's our goal every year.
I just think it's just going to be a great environment for not just our kids, but our teachers.
And even though my kids are grown up and they will personally benefit from it, it's a good investment in our community.
We're excited about all the projects. The nice thing is it addresses all the needs for all kids, no matter what grade level they're in. 2016, this project, they can be in facilities that they deserve.
Everything we do, that's going to make a huge difference for our communities because, again, they will continue to be more involved. They will see the results that are happening for their kids, their grandkids, their neighbors, whatever it is. And that sense of pride will just continue at St. Clair Central. That's what I'm really excited about.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Randall Pfeiffer, Don Grove, my cohort, Ron, stand up, Don. We come to you as parents, all right? Much like Carrie Fisher, we're parents of our kids. Our kids will not benefit by the facts that we're outlining tonight. We both have 9th grades. That means in 4 years they're off to college. If we're lucky, then you get to see a little bit of this. But no. One takeaway thing, one thing to remember is about that. You got Kate. Remember these names? Peyton, Claire, Ashley, Alyssa, Allison, and Alice. Do not forget those names. They're our kids. That's what this is about. Shane, we go back a long ways. Fancy buddies. Your kids will benefit because they're younger. That's what this is about. It's about our kids. So, tonight, the agenda. Don and I are going to tag team, talk a little bit about district mission, guiding principles, background research, recommendations, referendum questions, tax and impact, and best of all, questions and answers. You know why? Interrogation starts. You got the experts. Challenge them, poke them, prod them, vet them, make sure that they are very clear in what they articulate to you, make sure that in your mind when you leave, you understand exactly what the facts are about. That's all that we ask. Remember the kids, remember the facts. So, we move on to district vision and mission. Now, we've talked about questions. We're going to save questions and answers from you folks till the end, but I get to ask questions throughout. How many of you have really paid attention to the vision statement and the mission statement? Raise your hand. All right, a few of you. Okay, vision statement. We want to be district. We want to be respected for a model of excellence and student achievement. Right? That's their vision. But let's look at the mission statement. It's a very important word there. It's on the second row. Character. So I looked character up. All right? And the source that I had, moral or ethical quality. Qualities of honesty, encouragement, integrity, reputation, good repute. To have that in the mission statement, think about our world. We live in a troubled society. And here, this community, our school districts, these administrators, first line in their vision statement is character. And then they want to supplement that with knowledge, with education, with skills. And as you'll see as we continue to represent and show you the facts, and build upon it. But again, the most important thing, and honestly, I did not pay attention to this until the last couple of days. I was really starting to figure out what to say. And the really funny thing in all of this is Don and I have been in all these meetings and do a little bit more about that. We sat down today and we kind of reviewed our notes. And it is uncanny how we each divvied up the slides. And on the slides that were on ours, we had almost identical thoughts of what to present. So when I talk about character, she had that in her mind as something to say about that also. I find that cool. We have not shared those notes, but that's what came to us. Remember, it's character, it's knowledge, it's skills, and it's the kids. So the guiding principles, and as you look at what's going to be presented tonight, there are really 4 key areas where within the guiding principles, those carry out this referendum and what we're trying to accomplish. And we starred them for you just to make sure that there's no misinterpretation. Put the kids in 21st century skills we need in order for the students to excel. Think about STEM and what that brings to us and the enhancements that we'll be able to offer our kids in the future. Think about research-based and data-driven instructional practices, adapting with the times to meet the kids. Maintain and develop appropriate learning spaces. You'll see that as you present some of these solutions. That happens. And finally, move with a great sense of urgency. All right? Here's a good example. It's not even tied to a referendum. There's a lot of discussion about 4K and teacher education. All right? Didn't take a referendum. We're bringing them into the staff to improve and ensure consistent quality exists all the way down to 4K within their control. And they're doing that because it's the right thing to do. And so with that, we move on to Dawn. And she'll take the next little component for us. I can go.
All right. And so what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to get into kind of how we came to the point we're at tonight. And it was some time ago that the school board and the administration and the teachers and a lot of the community figured out that it was time to start looking at changes that we need to make in order to set ourselves up appropriately for the future. And so with that, the administration and the school board opted to set up a community-based citizen facilities task force. And we started meeting in the spring of 2014, so about 6 months ago, I think was our first meeting. And I remember at the time when we showed up for the meeting, my husband and I went to the meeting, and they gave handouts for, I think, 12 people, and there were 55 or something at the meeting. So we knew right away that there was a great community representation that was interested in this and interested in what what was to be said and what was to come out of this. So with that, we formed some goals, and we set forth to accomplish those goals. We reviewed and analyzed the building and programming needs, and I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. We looked at lots of different options for solutions, and with that, looked at the financial impact of what those solutions would mean to the community as a whole. We conducted the goal was to conduct a community-wide phone survey to measure the support, again, looking at the programming needs and tax implications and sort of what the community's tolerance was for those. And of course, we wanted to do all these things in order to help us better meet the district mission and the vision statement that is set forth, as well as the guiding principles that Wendy was talking about. All right, so when we first started meeting as a group and laid out those goals, it sort of fell into these categories of things. We met, I think, on a weekly basis or every other week, something like that. And we started doing different tasks, and a lot of what we did is right here on this slide. We looked at programming and space needs by building. And so with that, we met at every school and we toured all the different schools so that all of us could sort of objectively look at what the needs were and what the situation was. We saw some of that in the video, the crowded classrooms, the crowded gyms, that sort of thing. And we were able to go through and sort of quantify by school what the needs were and get that kind of out in the open. We looked at population growth and enrollment projections, the University of Wisconsin-Madison Applied Population Laboratory, and we tried to be pretty conservative from a growth projection standpoint. We didn't look at the really, you're going to grow 1 million kids in the next 10 years, or the really, high growth estimates. We also didn't look at the really low end. We tried to come out somewhere in the middle and estimate sort of conservatively what our growth would be over the next 10 years. Because everything we're talking about is the recommendations that we're talking about. We believe that should the referendum pass, it will take us out, set us up for the next 10 years. We reviewed building condition reports to just sort of see, kind of get a glimpse along with looking at the space needs, kind of get a glimpse of where we are. We talked about lots of different options, including building a new school, right? Building a new school. We talked about reconfiguring the grade levels. If we move 8th grade to the high school, does that help us? If we put 5th grade back at the elementary school and put an addition on there, does that help? So we looked at all kinds of different options. We had several sort of tortuous meetings for anybody who was there. We broke into groups and argued about all these things and came up with different options. And along with those options, Myron Construction was able to estimate the costs that went along with those. And we took a really hard, close look at those costs. We looked through the financial considerations and what the tax impact of all those different options would be and tried to kind of lay out, based on tolerance, what would be our best option. And that went along hand in hand with the community survey. There was a community survey conducted. It was a random phone survey that was conducted by Lawrence Leatherman Company with a lot of questions on it, having to do both with the needs of the community, the tax tolerance, just all kinds of different questions that tied into this. And so looking at all of that as a whole to come up with the recommendations that we're looking at that were ultimately presented to the school board. And I will say they were ultimately unanimously presented to the school board. As a whole, this big group of people that got together as the Community Facilities Task Group agreed on what the best options were once we had gone through all the data. All right. So from that review, what we found, and this is just getting into a little more detail on what the findings were in terms of what our needs were, and a lot of them were addressed in the video that we watched to start, so I won't talk about these in too much detail, but it was pretty apparent both from the facilities task force and from the phone survey that safety and security updates were really key in a lot of people's brains. Just improving the bus loop, as we mentioned, at the elementary school. If anyone's ever dropped off there, you know exactly what we're talking about with that. It's a dangerous situation. The police have been there. I've seen them there myself. Safety of the building entrances at the middle school and the high school, and working through some of that, especially in light of the number of school shootings that have happened Classrooms to address capacity, again, it was addressed in the video, so I don't think I need to elaborate all that much on that. Space for educational programming, the special education programming, not only classroom space, but a conference room where the special education teachers can have private meetings with parents and their children. I think that's something that's lacking in conference room space, as it is in, it seems like anywhere, is at a premium here. STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, and math. We were able to do some aspects of this today, but we believe that we could do a lot more. And again, that's all fitting into that mission and vision that we character our kids and preparing them for the outside world. And these things are just so critical as we go forward. And then expanding our physical education, doing fitness improvements, not having wrestlers wrestling out in the hallways, not having space serving. I've heard in a group we talked about serving brunch at the middle school because of some of the space configurations they have to do to accommodate all of the phys ed classes, so different things like that. A performing arts facility, again, it's not just a place where we can have our concerts and our plays. It's a place where we can unite as a community, where we can use that for additional classroom. Imagine bringing 5 classrooms together for one lecture and then being able to take the other 4 hours that you would have had on lecture time and putting that over the lab time and utilizing that time that would be able to bring those kids into an area. And then again, we've talked with other communities who have auditoriums, and when the schools aren't using them, they're able to have community events in there, community theater, different kind of concerts, entertainers, meetings, whatever. So it's just it's a nice gathering place for the community. And a bus garage and a maintenance building, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Randy's going to talk a little bit more about that, but we do believe this is a necessity. If we dropped off kids here, you know that a lot of our buses sit outside in the wintertime. It's estimated that takes probably 2 or 3 years off the life of the bus, not to mention the additional fuel costs and different maintenance costs associated with leaving those buses out in the cold. And so that's, like I said, Randy's going to talk a little more about that, but that's certainly one of the things that the task force felt was really important. All right. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Randy, and he's going to talk through ultimately what the task force came up with for the recommendations to each school and present it to the school board.
Thank you, Don. So from a recommendation standpoint, what the referendum is addressing is a little shy of less than $24 million of capital expenditure that's invested in 4 major areas. 3 schools, the bus garage, and then some minor small renovation to the district office. And I'm a visual person. You guys have all these notes. I'm going to go straight to the pictures because I think that tells a better story. So when you think about from an elementary school standpoint, we talk about safety and security, and what are the 2 things that are at the top of the list? Address reconfigure student drop-off parking and a new bus load. They no longer conflict. All right, you no longer have competing entities of buses trying to get in and parents trying to drop their children off at the same time. It has been segregated. That is incredibly important. Think about that from a safety and security standpoint for our kids. Kids on the first page. They're a little older than that, but think about that. All right, we have classrooms. All right, 6 classrooms per grade level and a science lab. Not had that before. All right, we've got resource rooms for grade collaboration. We're renovating space for special education. We're adding a second gym to expand the physical education opportunities. All of that comes in a little bit shy of $5.7 million, and we're expected to have that completed by the fall of 2016.
Randy, you could choose your pointer and show where the groups are.
So here's the loop for the parent drop-off. Up through here, we'll expand parking out, and then the bus loop comes over, and this end, completely separate entrance, and so forth for the buses to park. And then the way it's designed, it also is designed to ensure that kids can't get in trouble as they get to the buses and so forth. This addition in this area really focuses around additional classrooms. Over here, you're going to see special education additions, a few more classrooms, a couple of bathrooms, and another gymnasium. And if you take the time to study the boards have the detail, all right? Boards here, there are boards over there. And by the way, just want you to know, there's a 5-to-1 cookie ratio in here, so you guys have got to get to work. On the first meeting when we had 60 people, I think they had 60 cookies. So moving on to the middle school. All right, in the middle school, in this recommendation, we've also tied in a minor renovation to the district office as well as the bus garage. And let's talk about the district office first, because the procurement of that and moving to the bank was done outside of the referendum. It was optimal space, excellent price, gave us immediate ease to start to think about relocating and shifting some of the maintenance area in the district office out of the school to buy us time as we get to the referendum. And it also provides us the ability to put some STEM lab and things in those particular spaces that we're able to do by shifting them elsewhere. District office also has plans for extra community education and additional space and resources that will benefit the community. And so the dollars in here is a very small amount just to renovate it. The bulk of the dollars focuses on middle school in a number of areas. Okay. I know some of you, and I know for the ones that I can think of, we're all fighting for this space for in place. Christmas concerts, and some of us are parked way over here, and some of us go to the same areas, so we park over here, expanded parking. But the most important thing is right in here. Safety and security for our students. We have a design that will allow us to have a better controlled entrance to understand the people that are coming and going. That is fundamentally the most important thing. Improved security. Add on space. We know the elementary school, there's a lot of children, and that grade is moving up, and they're coming to the middle school, and this anticipates that. So, the big keys, and the big news about this, a little less than $5 million, these guys believe they can have it done by 2015. Right, gentlemen? Finally, we move to the high school. Again, visual person. There's a lot going on there. Those kids are moving up, those large class sizes. High school is not designed for that. Key point number 1, right there. Improved security, better controlled entrance and access into the building. Secondary, to get some benefits from the common areas. All right? Space for STEM. All right? Off in this area over here. All right? Fabrication labs, other science and technology, skills designed to propel our kids into the 21st century. They can do that. Expanded special education spaces, all right? Recognizing the need for that. Expanding multiple other areas. Music, weight and cardio, wrestling rooms, upgrading the track, auxiliary gym, team lockers, all sorts of things designed to propel our students. Let's think about some of those. Auditorium, multiple purposes, multiple benefits. The sports tracks, the investments, the things that we don't have to have wrestling to keep the locker room space for football. Think about these facts. 325 kids in sports, 347 in the performing arts. There's 672 spots where our students are participating in sports, performing arts. And what do they get out of that? Life skills. They get teamwork. They get collaboration. They get to learn how to win. And unfortunately, they also get to learn how to lose. It's an important element. Right? Those are things that they take with them for the rest of their life. It goes into that character of it. Right? So when I gave you that number, 672 children in sports and performing arts, there are 821 students in the middle school and the high school. Think about that, 672, 821. It's phenomenal how many of our kids participate in sports and performing arts. We have other space over here, lecture hall, ideas and thoughts on the drawing board for, as Don talked about, maybe a large lecture classroom opportunity. Think about it. You have a teacher that gives the exact same lesson 5 times in a row. One of the thought processes was, let's get all the kids together once, let them all hear it once, and then focus that time on individual thought, study, teaching interaction and things, versus having a highly talented professional educated teacher repeating the same thing 5 times in a row. Now, decision hasn't been made on that. That's a thought process that has gone through into the steering committees and many facilities groups about ideas and opportunities. Remember, it is for the kids. And the passion that I'm trying to convey and instill in you, and the passion that Dawn is trying to convey and instill in you, reflect the facts. Our kids will not benefit. But we feel so confident in all this that that's why we're here independently talking to you and sharing this information with you. And so let's move on. Don will wrap it up into talking a little bit about the referendum questions, why now, and it leads us into that important Q&A session where we've got to drill these guys and vet it out and make sure that they understand exactly what they want to do and that you understand exactly what their vision is. We try to articulate that from our view. That's the time to ask them questions. And if you're shy, write it on a card and we'll come and we'll get it from you. Back.
Better? There we go. All right, so all of the things that Randy just went through, all the different recommendations, are the recommendations that were brought to the school board by the facilities task group and task force. And from that, the school board approved those recommendations and came up with the referendum questions that will appear on the November 4th ballot. There are 2 questions, and I'm not going to read them to you, but I'll paraphrase. Basically, question 1 is authorizing us to spend the money, the bond money, or secure the bonds, to make the changes that we just outlined for you. Those changes would start almost immediately once the referendum passes. And then the second question that goes along with that is an operating cost question. In the state of Wisconsin, operating cost questions have to be separate from the referendum question, and so we have to have 2. And what happens is basically answering yes to question 1 approves the bond, is your yes vote that says you approve of the changes that we're recommending. Answering yes to question 2 says you approve of the operating expense as well, saying no to either means that we don't. If we by chance pass question 1 but not 2, we'll have to figure out somewhere else to get those operating costs from, because we would pass question 1. I think that if question 2 passes and 1 doesn't, then I think I don't know, Tim, what do we do then? We don't. We don't do anything. But, so those are the questions. They'll be on the November 4th ballot. Outside of the room here, if you can't be here to vote on November 4th, we've got information on how you can vote absentee. There's some voting information out on the table outside of the room. So, all right. So from that, from a tax impact, let's talk about that a little bit, because that's one thing that we worked a lot with the architects and the construction company and the tax folks to work through. And we kind of gave some examples here. What this ends up from question 1, from a mill rate standpoint, is looking at an increase of 99 cents per $1,000 of property value. So if you look at the chart that we show here on the slide, if you're looking at, if the property value is $150,000, you're looking at a monthly increase in your taxes of $12. $12. And if you go across the line there to question 2, which is the operating cost question, you're looking at another $4 for those operating costs. So if you vote yes to both those questions and the referendum passes, you're looking at another $16 a month, or just roughly under $200 a year to make these changes a reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you like Starbucks? I do. Okay. And what's the average cost of a stipend? $2 to $6?
I'm a cheap coffee drinker, it's $2, but I know that it can be $4.
Put that in different terms. $16 a month, maybe 3 trips to Starbucks. Hey, that'll be cool.
That makes it right.
I'm going to translate it all through because I'm not a accountant. But it's a modest amount.
It is a modest amount, about $200 a month, so. A year. So why do I keep saying that? I'm going to scare everybody. $200 a year, about on a $150,000 house, about $16 a month. So, all right. So just kind of to sort of summarize and wrap up, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about this, but we've had a lot of questions. The task force looked at this, and then I know out in the public I've had questions from people about why do we need to do this now, and I think now is a good time for lots of reasons. They're all listed up here. Primarily safety and security. That came out loud and clear that we feel like we need to make some changes on this. We talked about historic and the projected enrollment costs, we talked about space constraints. We've talked about programming needs. We've talked about the performing arts space. We are in a low interest environment right now. I think that last slide kind of shows us that the mill rate increase on property value is that's not a bad price right now. The costs are going to continue to escalate because that's what costs do. It seems like over past historical context, the costs continue to escalate. And I don't think our interest rates are going to get a whole lot lower. So that from that standpoint, it's a good thing. Community support, we feel like we've got a lot of community support backing this. I think that was evident from the 54 or 55 people that showed up for the first meeting. It's been evident just out talking to people and through the phone surveys. So we're hoping that we have the community support to go forward with the changes now. And then the costs, like I said, will continue to increase over time. So just bottom line, I think now is a good time to do it for many, many reasons. And we probably, we can analyze whether we should have done it sooner, but hopefully we can get it done now. So that is about it. If you want more information, Randy's going to switch the slide right now, and I will tell you to visit the school website. There's all kinds of information out there about the referendum. There's background information. There's flyers that will be sent out down the road. Should be getting one soon, I think, with questions and answers. Those will be out there. The video will be out there. There's all kinds of information on the website. Certainly you can contact the district office. You can talk to Tim Whitaker. You can talk to anybody on your school board, teachers, coaches, any of the education or the staff at the schools here, not just the teachers, but other staff as well. Task force members, whoever, there's always information available. And then there are 2 more community forums coming up. There's one on Wednesday, October 8th, and another on Thursday, the 23rd of October. One at the high school and at the elementary school. And then we have an outreach group that we established as a part of the task force that's going out to different groups and smaller groups, like the Lions Club and some of the churches around the area, and they're doing sort of an abbreviated version of this presentation for groups just to make sure that people are informed. So if you know a group that would like that or could benefit from that, let us know and we'll have to do that as well. And I think at this point then, this is the point where you get to, what did you say, poke and prod and challenge?
Address.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to school board member here, Jeff Redmond, and he's going to lead this group through the question with our distinguished panel here.
Thanks everybody for coming. The task group was advised by Brian from R.W. Baird. Brian's been a long advisor to our school district on bond and fiscal related things. Craig from Myron and Vaughn from Wold Construction or Architects. So they're available here. We have school board members, we have administrators here. So welcome any questions you might have, and we're not leaving until we get them all answered. Then we have no questions. So somebody with a question? we read our dynamic community newspaper. The front page of the newspaper, Tim quoted as saying he's nervous about enrollment. So Tim, why don't you explain what you were nervous about? I'm actually nervous by nature, but yeah, I was comments this year last Monday's board meeting. And every month we give an enrollment update because enrollment's important to us. We want to monitor that. It's important to the school board because, as you know, enrollment is a big factor in setting our budget, our revenue each year. So, if I have a choice between being open, honest, and transparent, or trying to hide the truth from us, which you open, honest, and that's what I chose. Just giving the board a heads up on our preliminary numbers, which are preliminary. Our student count, our budget is set by the number of students we have enrolled in our district on the third Friday in September, and again on the second Friday in January. So it wasn't, it was preliminary. There's a window because there's still kids that are coming and going, and they give us until October 15th. The Department of Public Instruction to set our budget for the year. So with that said, the time I think we were about down 27 students as compared to last year. As of this morning, the number is at 23, just to show you how things can change. And when we count in the seats for our reports, the students that are actually here, and for our budget, we get to count our virtual education students. We have a virtual charter school starting this year, as well as our virtual school, where students can take on classes, and both of those numbers have grown. I'm asked about this. We're up to 26 virtual students in our school. We're up to 28 in our virtual charter school. We also have an alternative education program, which started this year, and as of today, I think we were in that bank building, we're utilizing the bank. BTI is able to run a fiber free to the bank, so students are able to access whatever sitting right there as well. But so I will know probably the end of the week what our exact count is. I'll run the story and make sure that everyone's up to date with the paper actual enrollment. But the last piece is our open enrollment and open enrollment is significantly shrunk. It used to be about negative 40. We had 40 more students going out to other districts for various reasons that are coming in. And currently we're at negative 5 as of today. So it's shrunk as well. And then lastly, I want to talk about 4K. The biggest reduction in numbers was at the 4K level. And we were down 17 students. Well, there's going to be a natural fluctuation. We have grades that our second grade is 136 students currently in seats, and our 10th grade we have 82. I mean, there's a natural fluctuation in how we're segregating anywhere between 80 and 93. So we're at 109 4K students last year, we're at 92 this year. As of today, it's down 17. That's 17 of our 40K. And we do have a list of 18 kids that are out there that aren't attending and the reasons why. And there are various reasons why they're not attending. Some just choose. 4K is not a mandatory attendance. So some just say, no, they're not ready for school yet. And others are because the daycare is needed at work, things like that. So there are 18 of those students out there. So we kind of dug deeper into that. So I'm not as nervous as I was before. Questions? Please.
I'm just wondering if you want to start I'm just curious about the new entrance or the secure entrance at the middle school and at the high school too. Is it going to be like the one at the elementary or what's that going to look like?
Not designed yet, but Juan, you want to talk about the sorts of things that we'll consider?
At the high school, it's very easy.
So at the high school, very similar to the elementary school, and that's really what we're striving for, is to go through the office whenever possible. So after the school starts for the day, those interior vestibule doors lock down, all visitors must go through the office. A little more difficult here, because the office is on the second floor. So what we're looking at is, rather than have an intercom system that holds people outside, we'd actually look to create a vestibule just to the side of the entry where the elevator is, So we can bring people in, we have a secure spot for them to wait indoors where they're out of the elements. We have an elevator there, we can buzz them into the building and then they come up the stairs to the office. So doing what we can with this building where the office is elevated, at the high school, same exact scenarios at the elementary school.
One of the things, oh, please.
So we're nervous about the loss of decrease of 25, but 17 of them may be made up of 4K. And I would ask Juan or other folks, that doesn't remove any of the space issues that have gone through the rest of the large animal that the python has swallowed. I mean, that still is moving through, and looking at the enrollment projections from applied population, even without in-migration, our natural birth rate is still going to increase in the population. So I guess there's still those issues, right? We didn't suddenly gain a bunch of space.
I'll start and then we'll let Ron, because he did our classroom analysis. And I would suggest to you that this plan does not anticipate huge growth. We have constraints now that you saw special ed kids sharing rooms and not getting privacy and educational environment. So this plan addresses current needs without any new kids. And Ron, I'll let you speak to how the building plans address the population projection.
I said I wasn't going to talk about capacity tonight. I wish I had those slides because they were so interested in capacity. No, the buildings themselves, capacity actually changes and fluctuates year to year depending on how you're programming the building, meaning what grade levels do you have in at the elementary school, how do you look at your middle school? Is it operating more like a homeroom scenario, or are you fluctuating the students through? At the high school, it's based on teaching stations, and so you take an average number of students. But essentially, what you have now is you have buildings that are over capacity today. Even with slow growth, that's going to continue to grow. And you may fluctuate a little bit from year to year, but overall, those buildings are already stressed. Your core spaces, your hallways, your cafeterias, your locker rooms, those spaces are stressed. The physical education needs, the auditorium, and athletics, those spaces are really outside capacity. So there's a number of different factors at play here. A small dip here or there in capacity, unless you see that enrollment trend over time really going down, it doesn't change it. So as Jeff said, you're on a slow growth trend. It's going to continue, and so this is really looking to alleviate that, looking out 10 years out into the future to make sure that happens.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is this question number 2, the excess levy. So the state of Wisconsin, I'm going to go back to like 1993, said this is how much you get to spend. And it only goes up if your enrollment goes up or the state gives us an increase. And so we have a set dollar amount. When we add all of these building facilities, it's going to cost money to operate them. We actually think that that operating cost is going to be more than $300,000, and we think we can absorb some of that cost in our current budget. But to open these spaces, heat them, air condition them, to have about 1 extra staff FTE for this space, we're going to need $300,000 a year. So the state of Wisconsin says you get to only spend X unless the voters approve an excess levy, and that would be a continuing excess levy that would allow us to increase our taxes by $300,000 to spend that extra $300,000 to operate these facilities. The question about what happens if we approve 1 and not 2, my personal view is we can't afford to build that space because we can't turn the lights on. We don't have enough money to do that. But I don't know if anybody else has a comment.
We're adding 107 in the proposal, 107,000 square feet. So yeah, janitorial services, cleaning, electricity, utilities, all that. One more thing about the by population laboratory. Again, that whole report is on our website. If you want to look at the numbers further, but they propose 3 different growth models, and we've always chosen the slow growth model. We're growing at about 2%. And also, this flyer is getting mailed tomorrow morning. So you'll see this in the mailboxes on Wednesday, but it also has a growth chart. I guess one thing I forgot to mention, Brett was talking about, the 1 year does not make a trend, obviously. We have for the future. But in 2004, the district enrollment was 1,131. And now it's up to 1,566. Do 46% in 10 years. And we all know about the factors and things I'm going to about that. But I do know, if you've been around the district, we've seen new construction again, which is a good sign.
Other questions? John? Jeremy, I know gym space at the high school, gym space at the elementary, this room stops being a one-purpose at a time room and goes back to being a gym. Between your athletic programs and what we're seeing the gyms used for just by the school, what other demands are out there in the community, and how's that schedule going?
Right now, the schedule are just our community basketball. On October 1st, we're having a meeting. Our two basketball coaches are going to meet with our basketball community. And just to schedule our community basketball, we have to limit each team to having 2 2-hour practices a week. Because otherwise, if they have more than that, they use up all of the gym space. So they're allowed at each team, each level is allowed 2 2-hour practices a week. Some teams can, if they have older students, can practice a little later at night, which is perfect. But now you throw in some of the extracurricular things that are going on with band and choir, Cub Scouts. Boy Scouts were using the facility over on the football field the other day. Just everything that you throw into operational. Right now we have to be very tight, incredibly tight, and barely have enough space to get stuff done, whereas adding 2 gym floors would significantly improve that.
Other questions?
I think another important point about that is how certain activities preempt space. When the middle school has their play, this gym gets taken off and it's not used for basketball anymore. We have also other preempted space. I believe last year at the elementary school we were having a classroom on the stage. And during the elementary school play, that classroom got moved from the stage out into a hallway. So whenever we try to come up with creative uses of the spaces that we have, one part will suffer to make the other one work.
And currently our freshman level volleyball team is bus to the elementary school for practice, which means like the elementary school gym, which I don't know, Mr. Newsman, that would be great stuff you guys would want to do.
Well, it does. Matter of fact, just this week, their volleyball is scheduled to be practicing tomorrow in our gym, but we have a community partnership with Ball Hospital for the program called Be Fit. So now we can go to the gym, we take out the volleyball, and also because it goes later to unicycle, which is a community that is bumped. So actually, because of our space, we have 3 different entities just tomorrow. So, and now we've added about 100 kids for adventure care upstairs in the cafeteria, which now takes to another gym. So, under else here, we probably have a tougher time now scheduling basketball because they used to schedule a lot of the youth practices right after school in the gym. And now I have sometimes 60 kids in that facility, so we're going to lose that. So we're going to even have more issues now. And then when you add play to that elementary, they take that facility away from that. So.
Other questions?
That was just a follow-up. That's what I also, again, using just a recent example.
currently we have the cross-country, the middle school cross-country kids come over to practice, and the high school cross-country kids. They come in and change the bathrooms and commons, put all their stuff in the beginning of the year. Last week, we had that going. Then we had the C-team level volleyball quad come in. So we had put a team in the band room when they came in, a team in the library when they came phenomenally, because our locker rooms were full for cross-country, football, and volleyball practice. And it's just a constant moving kids around, not in the proper facilities. And that goes on all the time while the dancers are practicing in the commons and the cheerleaders are practicing in their round spot down in the hallway. So it was full all the time.
And our football kids can only stay because they can't talk.
And that's a significant issue that a lot of people, we're laughing about it, but it's a real issue. A wrestling room needs to be in the environment. Well, for 2 months out of the year, we're attracting dirt, mud, football equipment is the opposite. And then on top of it, in order for them to shower, they're getting better at it. Last year, but you have to go across the hall. And you can't have ice across that hall. It's just a mess. And it's something we have to do easily. But then again, then you get the rest of the season, and that room is, we have to sit there top to bottom, but the thing about it is, the rest of the just don't have that. There's a lot of this ski stuff happening. Not having that.
Okay, other questions? Please.
Where would this new bus garage be?
Yep. You want to talk about possible alternatives? I'll let Tim.
Yeah, right now we're looking at where the current bus garage is. It would be just to the west of the football field and baseball field. It's tight as you can to the road. We can't get at it. We run north and south along the narrow building. The buses could go in there, and that way it'd be right next to the current bus garage where they do the maintenance. So it'd be right there. So we have plan to purchase it.
The end life of the bus and how much the bus costs, what we just get in the life of the bus.
Our buses, believe it or not, are those 84 passengers are $110,000 now. We can get by with a 72 for 90, maybe. 97. Okay, so buses are very expensive. Obviously, they're important. Currently, we keep buses for 15 years. So imagine what they're like years 13, 14, and 15. But a very conservative estimate is that by having them stored inside in the urban environment, we need 2 more years of being conservative. We don't rust out. We are inspected by the state every year. We've got to pass an inspection every year, and rust is one of the big things. They put them on a commission, not a service. Brian Peterson does a great job of rotating the buses so that the same 6 buses aren't outside all the time. So it's that rotation so they all last. Another thing, I think I ran the numbers in front of me, but it was about $9,000 a year that we're spending in fuel to idle these buses in the winter time to get them warmed up. Like last winter was pretty severe. But over Christmas break, Brian, if he did not come in and start each bus for 2 hours, I was sitting outside morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, they would never start. So he'd be there every day over that 12-day break. So we estimated, conservatively how much fuel they consume. We didn't even estimate what the cost is to run those buses those extra hours just that idle. But by moving them inside, the numbers we ran in 5 years, we paid for it. We paid for that building. And it's, I believe, $75,000 is a proposed number for that building to house 15 buses and our 4 vans that we have as well in the fleet.
Other questions? Now's your chance. Or you can come back with other information.
today you see a lot of faculty members here. What's the plan to get more people at the meetings for the next few weeks? So we can start by asking everybody to bring 10 people.
Sure.
There is a communication group, right?
There is. We don't frankly expect people to come to us, so that's why we have a steering committee and we're trying to go to people. So we have about, I don't know, 20 different groups that we have people going to do a mini presentation of this. So if people won't come here, we're trying to go where they are. We have 3 mailings scheduled. One's going out this week, and we'll have 2 more mailings to get information out. This isn't get out the vote. This is just letting people be informed. So I'm not frankly surprised that people don't come here, but we're trying to get to them. I mean, we have it in the newspaper, and we're trying to get the word out. We sent out a postcard to everybody.
Right with Myron, and anybody that's on the task force knows I'm not going to go through a whole meeting without saying a word, so I can talk. But I just want to echo that. I mean, we work with school districts throughout the state, and I don't want you to feel that you aren't doing the due diligence with the group you have here tonight, because quite honestly, you do a pretty good sized group. I mean, we will go to a lot of these public meetings during this process. You might get 4, 5, 6 people that show up. So this is not uncommon, and again, like Jeff said, it's all the other things that you're doing to communicate the message and getting that information out that's going to really do it. Again, it helps. The next meeting, you definitely encourage people to come, but you should feel disappointed in this because it's very typical.
Howard told me that Hudson had 9 people at their first information meeting, so not unexpected, I guess. Any other questions?
Where is the expanded parking lot for the middle school? Is that going towards?
Yeah, we
own
one of those houses already. The other house has indicated they would be very interested in selling to us, so that's the land that would be at the parking. And typically school districts are circumspect about going in, because we actually have the power to condemn, and we could buy your house whether you want to sell it or not, but they've approached us about wanting to sell. And so that we believe that land is available, and that would be the expanded parking. Please.
What's the length of the bond? 30 years, and it's kind of a 10-year. What would we, for this school year, kind of looks like there might be it for anyone, there are all the space areas, but what would be the plan in the future? Probably going to keep going. Non-referendum discussion, the long-term first, and then we'll
Good evening, thank you for asking me a question. Wisconsin state law limits a facility bonding repayment period to no more than 20 years. And with the useful lives of the assets that would be added or improved, the plan would be to amortize the debt over a 20-year repayment. You did bring up the 10-year, and I'll let someone else talk about that part, but I do want to point out that when we're talking about the increase amount related to the bonding, we've set it up to where there's a natural drop after the 10th year to dovetail into whatever that next 10 years may have. So there is some forward planning with how that repayment is structured. And if there are no needs at that point, there's a scheduled drop in the debt payment in 2026. And that ties in with the final payment on the 2005 referendum, which was 10 years ago, which I think that's this facility with the majority of that referendum. So we do work pretty hard at trying to layer in that and minimize the tax impact such that it's following the long-range capital plan as well. The bond markets are surprisingly still very, very strong. Interest rates, many of you may know, but throughout last year, all the way through the end of interest rates had gone back up, which was, it was a lot higher than what it had been in the low point, which we saw at the end of 2012 and the beginning of 2013. However, even running up, rates increasing through the end of 2013, rates still weren't all that high, historically speaking. But throughout 2014, the majority of the year, we've pretty much gone to lower rates, and we're almost back to the low points that we've seen, that we saw in the end of 2012 and the beginning of 2013. So in terms of the low interest rate environment, it's still very, very favorable. The estimates that are baked into the financing plan call for an average interest rate of 3.75. Right now, the borrowing environment is probably more like 3.5 or 3.25, depending on the month that we're looking at it. But so when you're borrowing $23,995,000 over a 20-year period, every 0.5% interest that you can avoid reduces the total repayment cost by about $1.6 million. So it does add up. It sounds like 0.5%. That's not very much, but when you look at it over a 20-year payback, it adds up to some real dollars that can be put. It's taxpayer dollars to be put into bricks and mortar as opposed to financing costs.
Before we go to the other half of the question, I just want to speak a little bit about fiscal health. First of all, Brian's been advising us for many years, and on his recommendation, we were able to refinance some bonds a number of years ago and significantly lower our interest costs for the district. In terms of our district office, we just are recognized as a very prudent, fiscally well-managed district to the point where we've been able to get a bond rating that not many districts get, that saves us 50 basis points, 0.5% or so by having good financial plans. We have reserves that are within the tolerances that the bond agencies like to see. So I think on the whole, our district has been very well fiscally managed. We spent $10, $11 million on energy efficiency bonds, and we're able to borrow that money without increasing taxes to the taxpayers. And that replaced all of a bunch of stuff at the elementary school that was 40 years old, put new roofs and insulation. Everything had an energy efficiency payback within the bond period. So I think with Brian's help, we get the best interest rates. With our district office, we really are very well managed to save the district as much interest as we can. I want to address your question about what next. This facility here really is pretty much landlocked, so I don't know, Vaughn, maybe you want to speak to where we have other land.
Realistically, every community needs to be looking at their facilities. It's a reinvestment about every 10 years if you think about it. If you think about your homes, you wouldn't go 20 years without making an investment in your home. And that's historically actually what you've done. If you look at the high school, it was built in 1997. The addition and the renovation here was 2006. We're now in 2014, which means occupancy in 2016. So about every 10 years is when you're looking at those investments. You're going to change over that period of time. You said it was a 46% increase in enrollment. So let's say it's a 30% increase in enrollment over 10 years. That's another building. If you think about it, that's a third-year kids, which is an elementary or middle school or high school. You don't know what it is, but you'll reconvene task force, you'll study that problem, and you'll look at what's the potential grade configuration. Do you go to 2 elementary schools at that point? Does this building become something else, or does it remain a middle school? You're going to have to study that as you move forward and look at it not only in terms of the subjective issues around programming and kids and grade structure and all those types of things, but also what physical issues have come due. How are our roofs doing? Do we need to be looking at investments in our mechanical systems again, all those black and white facilities issues. So about every 10 years, a Granite community typically is making some type of reinvestment in their buildings, and you just have to keep on top of it and study it and make sure that as you're deciding, yes, now is the time, that it's aligned with all those different needs. So that's really where we are today. So another 10 years out, it's probably likely another type of reinvestment in the building.
At the high school, we have 75 acres, so there's probably a building site there if we needed it. There was a previous long-range planning group that that suggested a second elementary right next to the current elementary. Very strong community support for not separating two community elementaries. The community has worked really hard to have kind of one rec department and not have Hammond kids and Roberts kids, so they didn't want a Hammond elementary and a Roberts elementary. So the thought in a prior recommendation was to build a second elementary but have an elementary campus. So all of those things are possible, but it really depends on how things grow. Hudson, for instance, when it received growth, it was in the middle school. It didn't come up through elementary. They came at their middle school, kind of more mature families coming into that community. So it really depends on the nature of the building that happens in the community if you have to have that. Good question, thanks.
In all of these discussions about, what's best for our kids, I'm just curious with these additions and things like that, does any of it touch the extra time that we have, an extra 100 plus elementary kids hanging out after school for 30 to 40 minutes because we don't have the busing to get them where they need to go?
Pete, you want to talk about what you're doing before and after school?
Our second graders that are just hanging out.
What Mrs. Davenport is talking about is we have a two busing schedule in the afternoon at the elementary. So we have first orders and then we have second orders. And essentially the conversation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kurt, is that we have two of the newer, bigger developments. We have, we call it Tim's bus because Tim drives the bus. But basically, he has a large group of elementary kids and a very large group of middle school kids. He can't get them all in one load. So basically, he goes, he picks up all the elementary kids, which is around 60 kids, and he brings them to the elementary rather early. Then he goes and gets the middle school kids and takes them to the middle school. Well, he just reverses the process in the afternoon, and we have 4 other buses that kind of do the same thing. So I think what Mrs. Davenport is asking is if there's a plan to possibly add 1 or 2 buses to the fleet to alleviate that stress, which I know through my conversations we really haven't talked about that, but I do know that we can easily address that with standard starts, which the administrative team has been starting to talk about. So I think we can alleviate that stress just with changing some of our start times without even adding a bus. I think hopefully we can address that.
My concern is those, especially kindergarten students who are at school at 7:15 and they don't go home until 3 or 5. That's a long way for those kids. That's why I brought that up.
And I would tell you that in the bond referendum, there's no plans to add buses. That's really an operational thing that we look at, and trust me, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out bus schedules and how long kids are on buses, and the referendum itself is not going to change the number of buses. Please. So it does include air conditioning for both of those buildings. And some of the people I've heard, well, why air conditioning buildings? Actually, air conditioning is more about dehumidification. So there might be only a week a year that you absolutely positively have to have air, but the increase in sensitivity, the indoor quality of air, allergies, mold, mildew, dehumidifying the space, you're going to extend the life of equipment and make it better for learning environment. Other questions?
Yes, I'd like to address, we've addressed a lot of the facilities and athletic needs, but I don't know that we've touched on the programming needs of the district. And so I'd like to comment a little bit about that. The school board and the school district embarked on a concerted effort to try and increase the academic achievement of our students over the last, we started this, 5 years ago. We've always been trying to improve the education of our students, but we struggled to come up with a game plan that would really move the progress forward. Since then, I think we've hit on a good program, a good curriculum, a good planning process to improve the education. We've seen dramatic improvements in our test scores across the district. I don't know what we've seen on a recent test scores released by the state's report card from DPI. District as a whole exceeds all the expectations. Exceed the expectations of the state at that level as a district, and our high school significantly exceeds those expectations. Our ACT scores are up. Our participation and passage on our advanced placement classes is up. For the most part, our students are doing well. I think this community should be proud of their students, proud of their staff, what we've accomplished. What I'm hoping to do with some of the programming improvements that we're proposing in this referendum is to leverage the progress that we've already made and make our students even more successful than we already are. So, that, and questions also.
Anything else? Please, Kurt. Well, we have board meetings twice a month, and we spend the money we have now, and we use the facilities we have now to best educate kids in the best possible way we know how. The question was, what happens if the referendums fail? We will continue to educate kids the best way we know how, with the resources we have, and the world won't come to an end. Our kids are getting a great education now, but we can do better. That's why I think the community, through the facility task group, made recommendations for enhancements and improvements, and the school board said, yes, let's ask the board of voters if they'll support it as well. The school board has no capacity to borrow this money without the voters' approval. All we're saying is, voters, we think it's something that's needed. You decide. The school board and administration will deal with whatever the community decides. The best way to know. Other questions? Any final words from up here? With that, thank you so much for coming out. The famous few that showed up. We'll get more, but we are going out to people as well to inform the community. So thanks so much for coming.